Hi, Candace. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Diana?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for joining the space you're in. I'm super excited about our conversation today.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So before we get started, do you want to tell everyone who's listening a little bit about yourself and how we met? And
Yeah.
yeah,
So we met, we won't say how many years
yeah,
ago,
it's not important.
but we met in a college Bible study where I'm actually ended up meeting my now husband in that Bible study. And it's kind of wild to think back on all the things that we got to talk about and discuss. And
No, before Facebook.
like before Facebook was a new thing, right? It was just
Yeah,
starting.
yeah, yeah.
And that's how we met. We just got to be fast friends, I feel like.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And kind of friends that we can just like pick up where we left off and just keep on going. So I love friends like that.
Me too. Yeah, especially now that we live like how
Far
many
apart.
hours apart?
We're about 3.5 hours,
Okay.
depending on the traffic once we get into DFW
Okay.
from down here in Bryan College
Well,
Station.
when back in those days when we were friends, you were working on community college credits and you really wanted to
Mhm.
transfer to A&M and then you
Yep.
got in and it was like dream fulfilled and so talk about what you do because
Yeah,
it's
so yeah, I graduated from A&M with the dream degree that I wanted. I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I finished my degree at A&M 6 months after we got married. And that was fun. Both of us being in school and newlyweds. It was great. Some of our best years, I think back. Like, how did we survive then? I
you
don't
were
know.
young.
We were young and in love, and it was wonderful.
Yeah,
And
it was all exciting.
it was all new and all exciting and all super fun. And we just fell in love with Bryan College Station. And so we have stayed here in Bryan College Station. We got plugged into a local church body. And I started teaching at a local private school for a little while. And then um, after a few years of teaching, just felt kind of called to step out of the classroom, which was really hard.
Yeah, because
Kind
you worked so
of
hard to
Yeah,
get into the
it was
classroom.
dream. It was my
Yeah.
dream job. And I was working at a dream, like I could not have imagined a better campus to work
Mhm.
for, like in terms of a private Christian school. The parents, the administration, all of it was amazing. My kids were awesome. My class size was ideal. Um, it really was like the best of teaching. Um, so when God was calling me out of that, it was really scary. And it was also scary because the other layer was by that point, we had been trying to have a baby for a little while. And so for me to have like the Lord prompting our hearts of like me stepping out of the classroom, like, we don't even have a kid yet. I'm not even pregnant. And, by that point, people are asking you all the time, when are you going to have a
Right.
kid? When are you going to
Yeah.
have a kid?
Yeah.
And we had asked, or started answering that with like, well, we kind of started trying. We'll see what God's plan is.
Instead of
And
being like, mind your business. We'll
well, we
tell
got to
you.
that point. We did get to that point. We kind of got a little bit snarky at some points after a couple of years of
When you
trying.
see a bump,
Yeah,
you will know.
no, like we literally we were at a wedding of some of our friends from college, and all of our friend group were asking like, well, we were the first ones of the group to get married, and so that was like the number one question. Kelms, when are you going to have a baby? Like, oh my gosh, come on. And
Yeah,
I
I would love to know too.
yeah, my response was, I don't know. We tried last night. We'll see what happens. And so then everyone is like not expecting,
Mhm.
that response. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
because it's like
it's very
Christians, like you're supposed to
personal.
have kids, but you're not supposed to have sex, or I don't know what the rules are. Right.
Right. Right. And
So
it's also like, it's just such a personal, like, go-to question that people ask that really isn't like, it's not anyone's
it's
business.
you, yeah, literally. Like
Like,
unless you're trying to like change all the diapers, which
right, right.
you know,
And pay for, anything that comes along with those kids.
the
But
treatments that
anyway,
yeah.
so yeah, so I stepped out of the classroom. I was obedient. I knew, Brent and I both knew that that's what I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
With no baby on the way. And really having the Lord deal with me about my identity and like,
Mm,
where was I looking for value and worth in my life? Like, was I looking for that in my job as a teacher and as a career and being a good teacher and being a good wife, even if my or future mama, like those things could not be my identity. And I couldn't have that my identity wrapped up in any of those things, because at some point, everything, even good things in this world, will disappoint.
yeah.
And so God really, dealt with me on um my identity being in him, my foundation being in him,
Yeah.
and not striving only for those things that were good. It's good to have the desire to be a mom. It's good to have the desire to be a wife. It's good to have a desire to excel in your career. And in my case, as an educator. But if it's at the expense of my walk with him, then at that point it's an idol, and that's not good.
Yeah.
And so
Well, and for me, it's like, we met in church. My belief system is based in scripture. Not everyone who's listening to this will necessarily be Christian. So I want to say, like, for the believers, it's like, okay, like, Jesus talked about building your house on the rock. For the non-believers, I'll say everybody should have values,
Mhm.
that core beliefs that they live their lives by. And like where we get caught up is when we assign more value to people pleasing and to doing things that check boxes. Like society, it just is what it is. Like a married woman has more social capital than an unmarried woman. Women with children, are seen as like just more of than women without children. Like, so there's all these things that are, it's not God, or it's not, if you have a certain where you value integrity, you value, like, it's not your value system, it's just society and the world and
In general.
conditioning saying these are the things, the boxes that you need to check, to be like a valuable member of society. Like you need to be married, you need to have kids, you need to have a house like this, you need to like da, 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 da. And if you're not really conscious of it, like you won't realize like I'm being programmed. Like like this is not, these things aren't coming from me, they're coming outside of me and then make me think that I need to conform to some standard that has nothing to do with the truth of who I am, or like what I'm called to do, or how I'm supposed to serve the world with my life.
Mhm.
um and so I think a lot of people um get caught up in, and the whole like idea of like keeping up with the Joneses, like what is that? It's prioritizing appearance and external validation over being true to yourself. you know like there's no
Yeah.
need to keep up with anyone if you're in your own lane.
Mhm. And even like the pressure, even from, like you said, like even people who aren't within the church, you feel pressure to do the next thing, like whether it's like, even I'll say this, even as an educator, the expectation that everyone has to go to college. There are other jobs and careers that are wonderful positions that can be meaningful and great jobs for society. We need plumbers and we need electricians and we need a
Trash
lot of different
people.
trades. Yeah, all the things. And going to college might not be what your role will be to, um, I guess, like, contribute to society. It doesn't always equal going into tens and thousands of dollars of credit debt and or
Student loan,
student
yeah.
loans and all the things like that. That might not be what it is. And so we feel pressure from society in so many different ways, whether it's you have to go to college or you have to get married and right away have babies,
Yeah.
and we're a family, just the two of us.
Mhm.
Um, and
Family of
sometimes
one.
people don't view it that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a family with one. You are.
I
Uh,
am. So it's like I have two like celebrity crushes. And like if either one of them watches this and you want to go ahead and marry me, like just
Come on.
yeah, I'm available. But I don't even care if you laugh. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Shaquille O'Neal. Like I love them so much. And actually I met Shaq when I was on a date like
Uh-huh.
in October, and I was like,
Oh my gosh.
marry
Yeah.
me.
Like
Um,
totally.
but no, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a documentary out. He's got a book that's coming out. Anyway, he talks about how like when he's growing up, his father was always like, be valuable. And I love that because it's like, go to college, don't go to college. People have different learning abilities. People have different attention spans. People have different strengths and weaknesses. And college is, it works better for like a more of a one size fits all person. Mark Zuckerberg, like, yes, he got into Harvard, but he dropped out. And I think Bill Gates dropped out of college too. So it's like, you can be successful, but I think you just need to have the intention of like doing something with your life that solves problems for people. And that can look a lot of different ways. The law firm where I work, we represent trash companies. And I mean, like, some of them are worth millions of dollars. So, yeah, no college degree needed. Still worth a lot of
Everybody makes trash. Everybody.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
when you're, conscious of like recycling, and everybody makes some level of trash.
Yep.
Needed.
So the idea, behind this podcast is just to have conversations with people about what your life is like and what you thought it would be like, and how you're like learning to love that or be okay with that, or whatever that looks like. So for me, I grew up thinking I was going to be a professional ballerina and be married and have kids and have a dance studio and just live this like simple little life. And then at 20, really 22 is when I gave up on the dream of dancing professionally and went to college at 23, which is so like, I went to college, I had a ringtone on my cell phone when I was in college. And one thing led to another. I ended up going to law school, which was so not part of the plan. Like, I got to law school and there were all these people who were like, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little kid. And I was like, I don't want to be one. I just applied because I had good grades. Oh no, I made a mistake. And now I'm like almost a decade into practicing law. And I'm also like,
How
why?
did that happen?
Yeah. So it's like, there's good stuff. Like, I started a jewelry line and, that made it possible for me to be on TV. And I've made so many amazing friends, and I've been cured in, St. Bernard and Dallas and Houston. And so there's like all these really great things about my life that are nothing like what I expected them to be. But I'm also not married and I want to be. I'm also not a mother and I want to be, like, not a biological mother. There's women in my life who are like sisters and daughters, and I have mentees, and in last June I became an aunt to, oh my gosh, let me see if I can find my phone. I became an aunt to the cutest little girl. I have no clue where my cell phone is. I was going to show you a picture, but anyway, I love being an aunt. It's awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh,
It's so fun, isn't it?
yes, like I had no idea. Like,
I have
I
6.
still want to be a mom, but like I
I have
think
3
the
nieces
aunt
and
gig is
3
better.
nephews.
What?
The thing is great. I have 3 nieces and 3 nephews, and I love it.
Yeah.
And we get to do like, we're calling it cousin camp. We just started it with my oldest 2 nephews this summer. They're old enough now. Like, one is 8 and the other one is almost 6. And so they came down here and we had the best time. Like, we got to go, like, we have a creek in the back of our house. We got to go like back in the creek and like use the machete getting through, like, it's like dense forest. Like, I'm not even playing. But it was so fun. I love ant life and we really enjoy it. But that desire to be a mama is still there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like telling you, before we started the session, that like I was looking around at my birthday in last year and it's like started thinking like, okay, she's on in vitro, she's on IVF, she's doing fertility treatment. There's one girl who's pregnant.
Mhm.
And even like her being pregnant, like I had memories of like holding her hands, like, and sitting in the dark and crying with her because she wanted to be a mother. And I mean, it took 2 years of fertility treatments for anything to happen, which to some people it's like lucky, only 2 years, but for her it was just excruciating, just the every month, like disappointment. And, the Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And like that is, with fertility, like that desire to be a mother, it's like not rational. It's like it's in your bones, and so but yeah, I was just looking around. I was like, wow, like so many people either like I know the backstory of how they became a mom, and it was like not easy. Like one of my girlfriends who was at the party, I think her and her husband tried for 4 years. And
Mhm.
by the time she got to the party, I mean, she already had 2 kids, but like it had been a long road, and but anyway, yeah, I know that, we met in church when we were in our 20s, and now we're still 20s and holding ish, kind of. But I know that fertility's been, part of your, just journey as a woman and as a Christian and as a
Mhm.
wife. So I just thought that you could talk about like just what you've learned and, your
Yeah,
journey and how you're making peace with the space you're
yeah,
in.
yeah. We, back to like the teaching thing, I went back to work full time, which was something I didn't think I was going to do. I was like, God, you're calling me out of this. And now I'm back in full time and in public school, which and at a school that I had done junior methods at like right before student teaching. And I said I'd never go back. And
Mhm.
so it's neat to like look back over the last like 16 years ish and see how the steps have been ordered for me, and that nothing was by accident, and that there is a purpose and plan in each of it. And so that's one way that I kind of help, I guess, frame it, and also make peace with like my life doesn't look like the way that I thought. Like I thought I would stay at that private Christian school forever, and like that's where I would always teach, and that someday my kids would go there, and like, you know, now that I'm teaching in public school, I love my job. I am a dyslexia specialist and I work with kiddos who are dyslexic. And I actually am taking an exam to be internationally certified for like through the International Dyslexia Association on Monday. So I found other things to like be passionate about, and other things to pour some of my like mental energy into to like keep myself challenged, because I always thought my challenge would be motherhood. And for a while was putting different dreams on hold, like I don't want to, commit to like taking this other course and working hard to like get an additional certification, because it was like 120 hours of coursework to be able to take this exam, almost like getting a master's
Dang.
degree. Um, in terms of the amount of work that I had to do, and like a practicum and a case study that I had to write, and da 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 da. And I would be hesitant to do that because, well, what if I do that and then we finally get pregnant? And like for a long time, that was my mentality of like still making choices as if we would finally have a baby. And I had to start kind of choosing to live for now and in the moment right now. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know that God sees the big picture and he's sovereign, and whatever comes, whether it involves babies or doesn't involve babies or children in our family, that I can trust those steps that are being ordered, and that um, I should live now rather than put my life on hold, whether that's going for this additional certification that I'm getting, or planning trips, because for several years it was really hard to even plan trips, because I was like, well, what if we plan this trip and then we end up pregnant, we can't go, and silly things like that, that I was letting infertility rob me
Mhm.
of great opportunities, especially early on. um, and another way that I've really kind of learned to be okay in this space, not to say that there's not hard days, don't get me wrong, Diana. Like
Yeah.
there are still like moments that are really hard. And at one point in this journey, I mean, we've been walking this road now for about 14 years in some form or fashion, trying to grow our family.
Yeah.
There were definitely those like every single month it was like heartbreak. Our cycle comes and it's like, again, not
Still not
this time.
pregnant.
Yep.
No. Yeah.
uh, and that has lessened over the years. And I think part of it is the just about 6 years ago, I got plugged into a ministry called Waiting in Hope for couples and women going through this. And, finding your tribe, I guess, is really a true thing of like meeting people who get it, in a way. Like we got to go to a day conference. It was actually our 10th wedding anniversary weekend.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, he like put his foot down and was like, we're going to this. And I was,
Was it 2019, right?
no, it would have been 2017. when we went to
I
one
just feel
conference.
like I remember you doing
There was
10.
another one in 2019. Yeah, we've
Okay.
been to 2 different ones. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're 100%. Yeah, 2019 was when we did like a weekend conference that they had. The first one that they did was just like a day, and
Mhm.
I remember walking in going, first of all, like I said, I didn't want to go, and I
Right.
literally was, like, vocal about that. I don't want to be here, but I'm going because I'm going to be the good submissive wife, but I'm going to gripe about it, which is really not good.
Right.
And it was the best thing. Like, we were with people who were speaking our language and who were pressing each other to God's word, which is what we needed.
Mhm.
And I know, like you said, everyone is not necessarily going to be a Christian who's listening to this,
Yeah.
but I will tell you that that has been the rock and firm foundation for Brent and I through this journey, and a real place of healing, to get to have people walk alongside, that are encouraging, and also encouraging in that, like, your story is going to look different. And the reality is it may not be a baby at the end, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you expect it has to be this way. I know we kind of talked a little bit about earlier, before we started session, like that's kind of the expected thing, especially within the
The
church.
church.
And our church here is small, but it was very much a baby making church. Like,
Mhm.
people that were in our age group that were getting married within our church body, they would have babies. Well, some of them within a couple of years, they wait a couple of years or so, but some would have them really quickly. And, you know, we've been trying for 14 years, and some of our friends are 4, 5, 6 kids deep,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Well, and I'll add, like, so, I'm a certified life coach. And one of the things I do is I help people, get out of their own way. And one of the ways that, people can kind of get sabotaged is by having limiting beliefs or unsupported beliefs. And so the way beliefs are formed, just being super general, is by what you hear, what you see, and then specific experiences that you assign meaning to. And so if you are like us and you grow up in church and you hear about being that Proverbs 31 woman, and you hear about being a good wife and being a good mother, and when you're a mom and when you're a wife, and da da da, you form a core belief that
yeah.
these are things that are just going to happen for you. Like, they're just inevitable. Like, you will get married, you will be a mother. And it's God's will for you to do this. So it's like, to then get into your 20s and 30s and either not be married or be married and not have children. Now you're in a state where your life doesn't mirror your internal beliefs. And in coaching sessions, I tell people, like, if you want to know what you believe, like, look at what you do, because it's impossible to consistently behave in a manner that contradicts what you believe to be true. Like, it's can't do it. So to be then in a situation where your external world doesn't reinforce what's happening internally, it's like, in addition to just wanting the thing, it's just like, well, like, down is up, like Alice in Wonderland. Like, what is that?
Everything feels all discombobulated, and like nothing makes sense in a way.
Yeah. I remember getting told, because I did a 1-year internship with a Christian missions organization, um, the year after high school, and something to the effect of, like, yeah, like, women who don't get married by like their mid-20s, like, they just kind of stop walking with God. And so then I also was like, oh, so it's just like, your getting married or not getting married is a reflection of your spirituality. And, like, so if you just, love God enough, you'll get married. And if you don't, you won't. And, that's like a whole nother conversation for another day. But,
And in
yeah,
that, I'd love to chat with you about it.
yeah, yeah. We'll come back. We'll have another conversation about marriage and dating and all the things about how, okay. The one thing I will say is, like, it is funny to me how women in bigger, because I go to a bigger church, and they'll be confused about how, like, you know, all the guys are finding women, like, everywhere, and then they're like, wait, she was just like, you met her at a bar and now she's teaching Sunday school. It's like, yeah, he's a good guy and she's hot. and she got her shit together, and now she's a wife. Like, so just be hot. Like, and be a good person. Do both. Both.
Yeah.
Both of them. Both.
Not one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, both, ladies. It's just, ugh. Anyway, yeah, come back and we'll talk about godly women thinking that they don't need to be attractive and why that's a problem. Because I just feel like there are men who want wives and they just can't find one that they want because they don't look good. So, you know,
hard truth, perhaps.
yeah, I'm like, oh, man, like just a little cardio, some water, and makeup can do wonders. Can shop at Walmart, still look good.
Right.
Or, you know, whatever bracket you're in. So, and now I'm like totally derailed. I think I also was wanting to make a point. Oh, I was talking about core beliefs. So, you know, if you form these core beliefs, and if you are like me, you don't realize that they're being formed and you don't question them, you know, so just you end up in a situation in life where your world doesn't look the way that you thought it would, and it makes you really unhappy, almost like irrationally unhappy, and you're just like not sure why you're so upset. It's because you had a belief that you formed about what life should be, how it should look, especially if you played your cards right. But the reality is nothing's guaranteed. Like, you know, you're talking about, oh, I don't want to take that vacation because I might get pregnant. It's like, girl, you get hit by a bus tomorrow. Might as well take that trip. Like, you need, like, our next breath is not guaranteed. And so, you know, and I just think people are guilty of it in so many other spaces besides just fertility, of thinking like, I've got to put my life on hold because there's this thing I want. And so I'm going to just ignore all the opportunities that are in front of me right now, and the chances to be happy right now, and the chances to have love right now, because there's this thing off in the distance. And maybe one day, you know, it's like, no, like live now, you know, be grateful for what's good now.
I agree. We definitely do it in lots of different facets. I have friends that were very career driven and had, you know, put off trying to grow their family and or getting married, and then found themselves in their 40s newly married and wishing they could be a mom, but now they're at a point where it's a harder journey to make that happen.
Yeah, because your eggs, you
in
know,
lots of different ways. Yeah, I mean, the reality is there is such a thing as a biological clock, you know.
It's so triggering. I dated someone, I'll say 30 to 36. Now I'm talking about numbers. I'm not saying how old I am today though. But it was, you know, off and on, off and on. He was a Christian, but like, well, he called himself a Christian. Only God knows his heart. But it, you know, it's a good thing that we didn't get married. But you know, one of the things, like as we got closer and closer to, you know, talking more about marriage and finances and like what's life looking like, you know, two becoming one, and he was like, so like, are you fertile? And I was like, what? Because, you know, over, you know, 35. And side note, the way the story ends is, you know, after 6 years on again, off again, we break up and he got married. You know, I think our last date was in July. He got on a dating app and met a girl in 3 weeks, and they got married 5 months later. And she's 10 years younger than me.
Wow.
I'd be fine to choose my age, but
you know, I mean, I will tell you, like, we were kind of talking about this, or maybe I even said it earlier during our conversation now, but things like, you need to be happy with who you are and the choices that you are making.
Yeah,
you can only control you. And if you are looking for your happiness in your job or your spouse or children or a specific outcome, you are going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Because things disappoint in this world. That's just a reality.
Just like you disappoint yourself, like, you know. And I sorry, I'm looking because I'm like, I'm at my office and I think someone's gonna come in the door. But I was saying this to someone the other day, and they were like, what? I was like, the things that you can count on are the things that you can't see. If you can see it, you can't count on it. Period. Like that's the universe we live in. That's the invisible is what's real. And it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's just like, if you know, you know. Like, you know, the computer that I'm talking on, it started in someone's mind. Like the internet started in someone's mind. Like, you know, all these things, you know, in the beginning, let there be light. Like, you know, it just, the things that are fixed and real. And, you know, so if you're not a Christian, then, you know, what are your values? What are your beliefs? What do you want to be true for this world? You know, I think it's, you know, you and I, like, we're born at a time when, you know, we've seen so much, like, in our lives that, like, you know, I remember being a little girl and answering machines were like a new thing, you
Yeah.
know, and I had this
It
uncle.
wasn't the tape, like
Yeah,
those kind of answering
yeah,
machines, not digital ones, the ones that had a tiny mini cassette that you like popped in. Yeah.
but yeah, I have a cousin who got married this past weekend, and her dad, my uncle, like, refused to get the answering machine. He was like, absolutely, why would I get one? Like, so that now I come home and I've got messages from people. Why would I do that? I don't want to do that. So he just, you know, refused. And then, you know, got to a point where, like, now it's just, if you have a number, you have an answering machine. So
Mhm. Well, I mean, I remember when texting, you know, like was new
yeah.
and you were having to, you know, hit a number like 5 times to get the right letter. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, or when we were in
thing.
community
I will just
college
call
together,
you.
the
Yeah.
Motorola Razor,
Yes.
like,
Mhm. Or
phone.
that flip one, the one
Yeah.
that like the one that slid up and had a keyboard under it, you know, like
Yeah.
that was the
Like,
coolest.
we thought it was so, I mean,
Wow.
okay, wait, can you see?
I
Uh,
can. Oh my gosh, she is adorable. Look how cute she
she's
is.
so just, anyway, so my dad's from Ghana, my mom's from Nigeria. So she has an American name, a Ghanaian name, and a Nigerian name. And her
Mhm.
Nigerian name, the translation is "My joy has come." And it's like, I know, I know. And it's
Oh,
so, like, she embodies joy. Like, as a little, I will send you a video after we get off of her. Actually, if I can show it, this will be a good way to end the space you're in. Um, so her birthday was in June, and so she had her first cupcake, and it was just like, it was just
yeah.
the
Did she like
cutest. She loved it.
my niece that just turned 1 in July? She was like not sure what to do with that sweet, sweet, sweet icing. She was like not liking it. Look at her.
Uh,
She's like, yes,
living
sure.
her best life. She's like, oh my God, what is this? She's rubbing it everywhere, and, you know, so.
That is so great.
But anyway, we are out of time. This session actually went a little longer than I planned, but I just feel like this conversation was so great, and I'd love to have another one. So if
Yes, girl.
you've got time, then let's do it again.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks so much. And before we go, is there maybe anything else that you were wanting to say that you can get to real quick? Maybe for someone who's going on a fertility journey themselves.
You know, if you are walking the road with infertility, don't do it by yourself. Um, find people that you can trust and share your journey. You don't have to share with everybody. I get that. Like, but find a good friend that you trust that you can share with, whether they've gone through it or not. Get online, search Waiting in Hope. It'll pop up the first one and it'll be a great resource. There's all kinds of different resources besides Waiting in Hope too. But find people that you can rely on that can be there to support you, and don't do it alone, and don't be ashamed. Like, it's 1 in 8 couples. So it's way more common than we realize.
Yeah.
But a lot of people go through this alone and you don't have to. So
And a lot of people, like, they don't want to talk about it, right? Like, because
no,
it's
no, because it's
embarrassing or
exhausting and it's
stressful. Yeah.
hard. Mhm.
Yeah. And,
All
you know, that core belief, those is like, people feel like they can just walk up to you and be like, you know, it's like you're dating. When you get engaged, you get engaged. When you're getting married, you get married. When you have a baby, when you have baby. When you have another one, like, and
Mhm.
it's just like,
Yeah.
no,
And
like,
that when you're going to have another one is a hard question too. I have friends that have gone through secondary infertility for many,
mm,
many, many years and want nothing more than to give their kid a sibling. And that's a hurtful question too. Like,
uh,
so for people not going through infertility or not learning how to walk in this world in a single life. Like, stop asking people questions about whether you're married or whether you have children, because those are not what make you valuable as a person. You are valuable as you.
Yeah.
And find other things. Tell me about yourself. Make it an open-ended question and let the person guide what they want to tell you about themselves instead of asking pointed questions.
Yeah. I
Is
like that we're at a time where I think that's progressively going to become more and more normal, to just like realize that if people aren't pregnant, there could be a reason, like either planned or unplanned, and it's none of your business. So, yeah, well, thank you so much for
Thank
making
you,
time to
Diane.
catch up with me. And
Yeah.
I hope that if this gets shared with other couples who are dealing with infertility, that encourages them, like it's encouraged me. So love you
Well,
so much.
you too, friend. You too.
Bye.
Bye.